In an emotional final game in the Colosseum, it might have been the first time I think I've ever found myself happy for the Rangers to be on the losing side.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into the Vandy boys' performances, the emotional final game at the Colosseum as a Major League Baseball venue, and a little something more. This episode is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right stay can make you a fan of any city, even your baseball rivals. Book today on Booking.com, the official accommodation partner of Major League Baseball. Get the Booking.com app today. Now, I want to start with what's most important to the Rangers in this one, the final start of the year for Kumar Rocker. Not the best start of his young Major League career, and it felt like he was facing a very Oakland A's team. Only 4 2/3 innings. Thankfully, no walks. He was very much in the strike zone, not getting a whole lot of swing and miss. Only 2 strikeouts, only 5 swings and misses for him on the day. Pitch count all the way up to 73. I thought he might be able to get through 5 innings in this one, but alas, he could not. He was relieved by the other Vandy boy, Jack Leiter, who also struggled to get swings and misses, or at least strikeouts. 1 strikeout for Jack Leiter in 3 1/3 innings. And I felt like that was just a very fitting Oakland A's kind of performance. The thing that frustrates most about the A's, I remember Yu Darvish always had a hard time facing off against the A's because he's very much a strikeout pitcher, always has had great swing and miss stuff. But the thing about the A's that's been true, or was true when they were, around their peak, at least, around peak-ish the last few years, from like 2010 to around like 2014, 15, 16, those kind of years, is that the A's were always such pesky at-bats. They're always so annoying, so difficult to finally put away and to strike out. They just did not swing and miss. They did not chase. They always put together the most annoying at-bats, no matter the level of talent on that roster. Facing them was always going to be an annoying challenge if you were a big swing and miss guy and you were trying to get swings and misses and, you were a pitcher at the top of your game. It didn't matter who was on the team, how many Major League plate appearances they had. They were not a team that would swing and miss. And so for this A's team, which has been pretty strikeout prone the last couple of years, to put together a performance where they strike out just 3 times against 2 guys with very, very good swing and miss stuff. I mean, we've seen what Kumar Rocker's curveball can be and what it can do to teams and what his fastball can do in combination with that. And we haven't seen too much of his changeup just yet. We'd like to see a little bit more of the sinker. But for him to only have 5 swings and misses while throwing 72 pitches, or 73 pitches, it felt like a very Oakland A's kind of game for him. Now his rookie season, or I guess first taste of the big leagues, is done. 3 starts in the big leagues this year, 11 2/3 innings, 6 walks, just 1 homer in that first game, 14 strikeouts, a 3.86 ERA. Overall, pretty solid numbers for a guy coming back from Tommy John surgery, a guy who was by no means expected to have any kind of taste of the big leagues this year. What I really liked about him is him staying in the strike zone. 50 of his 73 pitches were for strikes. He was staying in that zone, getting these weak contact ground outs, and I'd like to see a little bit more swing and miss, but the curveball wasn't quite as sharp today, or maybe it was just the A's recognizing it a bit more. They weren't chasing like other teams have in the past. I don't think that is teams figuring out his curveball. I don't think there's a figuring out of that curveball. It's just so darn good. I think just today, it wasn't necessarily as sharp as he would have liked it to be. Now, the pitch mix moving forward, I would really love to see a lot more of the changeup. We still have not seen him throw a cutter at all this year, at least in either AA, AAA, or the big leagues. I don't know that he threw it last year either. I think that he hasn't thrown it since he was in independent league ball after he got drafted by the Mets and then was not signed by the Mets. He was throwing a cutter then, but the Rangers say that it's game ready. They've said that it's game ready since he was in AA Frisco. I think that that could really help him against left-handed hitters, but that curveball does very, very well against lefties. If it was a true traditional slider, it wouldn't be as effective against opposite-handed hitters. Righty sliders usually are not that great against lefty hitters, so that's why a lot of right-handed pitchers will add the curveball, the changeup, things like that to attack lefties a little bit more effectively. But I'd also like to see him throw that sinker a whole lot more. I think it's just a better pitch than the four-seamer. It's got more movement on it. The velocity is not that different, or at least it didn't seem like it was when he was throwing it in the minors. It's like a little bit slower than the four-seam fastball, but the movement on it, I think, really, really helps him. The overall shape of his fastball isn't ideal. The vertical break on it isn't, amazing. The velocity has been down from where it was in the minors, only 95.7 miles an hour averaging on his fastball this year. I think that combines the sinker and the four-seamer as well, whereas in the minors it looked like it was sitting pretty easily 98, touching 99 to 100 at times in his starts, at least in Frisco, and I think he also had a start where he touched 100, or at least 99.9 in AAA, according to the StatCast data. So I don't know if it's a case of fatigue, of just him, getting those reps built back up, what he will look like next year, but I've been really impressed with what we've seen from Kumar Rocker this year. I mean, the fact that he's in the big leagues at this point, already having 3 starts in the big leagues this year, not just making up for 1 cup of coffee, come out there in a relief appearance. No, he forced the Rangers' hand this year to promote him to the big leagues, and he earned it, and he mostly performed. Could have been a little bit better at times, but man, that first outing against the Mariners was just absolutely electrifying. And I think we'll see a lot more starts like that next year, especially once he's, fully built back up, has a normal offseason. He's healthy now, and he will go into next offseason or into next spring training with whatever a normal offseason looks like for him. And I'm excited to see what the Rangers do in terms of his innings limit for next year. I don't know if there will be an innings limit. I'm pretty confident that there will be. I don't think he's just going to go out there and rip off 200 innings. Even though he's got the frame for it, I think that maybe 150 might be the max that we can kind of hope for him next year. But we'll see. The steps have been monumentous this year, and they've happened so quickly that it kind of felt hard to fully take them in. It just went from, okay, we saw him last year. Let's see if what he can look like in Frisco. Get him a couple starts between now and the end of the year, whenever he gets healthy. And then he comes into Frisco, and he just looks like the best version of himself that we've ever seen. And it's sensational. You think, okay, is this really happening? And it just kept on happening from the time he got to Frisco till the end of the year when he was making big league hitters look silly. It's huge steps for him. As for Jack Leiter, I'm a little confused, perplexed as to why he is still coming out of the pen and not getting one of these final starts, especially with Max Scherzer finally on the shelf for the season. Why they didn't give Leiter just a start of his own on Saturday. It seems like Andrew Heaney is going to be starting on Saturday, and they have TBD listed as the game 162 probable pitcher in Anaheim. But maybe it's an innings limit. Maybe it's something else. Not entirely sure. But Jack was pretty economical with his pitch count and going 3 1/3 scoreless innings against the A's. Even though he did have to work around 3 walks and a couple of hits, so only had the 1 strikeout, he was economical. I mean, 48 pitches to get 3 1/3 innings, that's solid. He was also throwing that slider. It felt like he had much, much better control of that slider, really dotting it on the corners. It was just kind of a case of the A's having a really great judgment of the strike zone in this game and not chasing. But, I mean, when they weren't chasing, he was even able to land that pitch on the corners, like just absolutely dotting that slider up, which is a great sign for him moving forward. The curveball wasn't quite as sharp, but still a solid day for Leiter. This might be his final performance of his rookie season, and if that ends up being the case, then it's bit of a mixed bag. Ends the year with an 8.83 ERA in 35 and 2/3 innings, just 31 strikeouts to 17 walks. The walks got a little bit more under control, felt like, towards the end of this year. We saw some steps for Leiter, making progress, looking like he might just be a part of this rotation next year. I think he's probably going to win a job out of camp, and the Rangers are going to need him to. The Rangers are going to need several starts from Jack Leiter, if not a full season worth of starts from Jack Leiter next year. What those starts look like, I'm not entirely sure. Does he end up in the bullpen at some point next year or eventually in his career? Maybe, but for now, I'm impressed with the progress that I've seen from Leiter. Something that I was a little worried about after the last couple of years where it felt like he stagnated and, was making the same mistakes over and over again. But he's had some definitely rough patches at the major league level. He's shown some flashes of absolute brilliance at the major league level. And, for a 24-year-old pitcher, that's what you hope for. He's made some big strides, as has Rocker, and I'm really excited to see what the two of them do next year. Coming up, we'll talk about the actual game, why it was such a fitting tribute to the final game, Major League game, in the Colosseum, and look ahead to this weekend and the final regular season series of the year. Right after this word from our sponsors. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash, receive unlimited 1% deposit bonuses, and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up today at robinhoodgold.com. Terms apply. For specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Shout out to the Everydayers for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. The Rangers take on the Angels tonight, 8:38 p.m. Central Time, first pitch. Jacob deGrom versus Reed Detmers, and you can catch every pitch of the hometown broadcast on SiriusXM. Just download the SXM app and search Rangers. Now, this was the final game in the Colosseum, a scrappy, annoying one-run loss, which in and of itself is incredibly fitting. But I think the most fitting moment of this being the final game in Oakland Coliseum was an error by Wyatt Langford. Shout out to Josh Hamilton and his ocular keratitis, losing a ball in the Oakland sun, just something that happens very regularly. Thankfully, this one, even though it led to what ended up being the game-winning run, a little bit less devastating than the last time towards the end of the season that a Texas Rangers outfielder, former top 4 pick in the draft, with all the immense potential in the world, lost a ball in the sun and ended up leading to a loss. This one was a little bit less painful, for sure, because the Rangers won the World Series. Now, thankfully, we can all collectively look back and laugh about that ocular keratitis moment back in 2012. But Wyatt Langford losing a ball in the sun just felt very Oakland, very A's, very Rangers AZ, and a nice little tribute to a formerly very painful moment. For me, a little bit less painful moment in Rangers history. But the combination of Rocker and Leiter did their job. The offense could not quite get it done. The only runs coming from an RBI single from Adolis Garcia and an RBI not quite grounded to double play by Nathaniel Lowe, legging one out, but just not a whole lot of offense in this one in general. Only 5 hits and 3 walks in this one, and 3 of those base runners of the 8 that I mentioned were Wyatt Langford, reaching on a single and a pair of walks, also stealing his 18th bag of the season. Doing that with a guy who throws 104 miles an hour on the mound is incredibly difficult, and I think he might end up getting to 20 steals. He's only got 3 games left to get 2 more steals, but I think the 2020 season is probably out of reach for Wyatt Langford, unless he has a 4-homer game, or I guess a couple of 3-homer games in these next 3 games, or I guess just 2 homers in each game and a couple of steals in each game would get him there, or just a couple of steals in total. But I think that the rookie 2020 season is a little bit out of reach. But there were some brilliant moments of defense in this one. Marcus Semien, even though he went 0 for 4 at the plate, had a phenomenal diving catch with the bases loaded and no outs to keep it from getting a little bit worse. Just a diving stop on a ball that looked destined for the outfield from his belly, flipping it to Josh Smith, who had to stretch like a first baseman to get that ball on a hop and get the runner at second base, because that was the only play that could possibly be made. It was just a brilliant moment from Marcus Semien, who also had his 1,500th career hit in this series. He talked about wanting to have one more moment in this Colosseum. He's had many, many moments of brilliance in here in his years as a member of the A's. Also, a very, very memorable grand slam in his first season with the Rangers that really got him out of that first 2-month skid, 2-month stinker after signing that contract with the Rangers and looking offensively horrific for those first 6 to 8 weeks or so. That grand slam was kind of the proving point from him. And from that point on, he had been fantastic until really this year. Offensively has not been quite what Marcus Semien would have hoped for, but it wasn't the only moment of brilliance defensively. JJ Bleday with one of the better leaping grabs that you'll see, positioned in right center field, and steals a surefire double from Carson Kelly. Just a magnificent read off the bat, a magnificently timed leap that was absolutely necessary and just absolutely robs Carson Kelly of what should have been a surefire double. Carson Kelly has been in a rough way offensively in the month of September, and honestly, really, since joining the Rangers, it has been a bit of a rough time for him. But one little fun fact about JJ Bleday, you may remember he went to Vanderbilt. You may not. And he was teammates with Kumar Rocker playing center field in that 19 strikeout no-hitter against Duke in the Super Regional heading to the College World Series, in case you forgot about that. If you wanted to go back, I remember that while going back and watching that game a couple weeks ago before Kumar Rocker's debut. I was like, oh, there's a guy I remember, JJ Bleday. But really, the very fitting tribute, the moment of magic, Mason Miller coming out there. I mean, all of these relievers were fantastic. They only led 1 base runner in the entirety of their 3 2/3 innings of work. All the base runners before that by Mr. Ginn, the starting pitcher, who had a pretty solid performance of 5 1/3 innings of just 2 earned runs, 2 runs in general. But Otanez's walk to Wyatt Langford in the top of the 8th inning was the only base runner that any A's reliever allowed, because they had some absolutely nasty relievers, not to be undermined by Mason Miller, the nastiest of the bunch, getting a couple of strikeouts. And Mason Miller in his 1 1/3 innings of work had as many swings and misses as Kumar Rocker in his 4 2/3 inning of work, which helps when you're throwing 103.7, 103.5 miles an hour. I mean, Mason Miller is just absolutely disgusting, throwing the hardest pitch that any A's pitcher has ever thrown in the history of the Colosseum, and doing it on the final 2 pitches was just incredibly fitting. It was a beautiful moment for Oakland fans, getting that last win, going out with a W, with some great moments, with some tears, for sure, that were incredibly well earned. Come over and talk about why I felt pretty good watching the Rangers lose for the first time in my entire life, right after this word from our sponsors. This episode of Locked On Rangers is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. It's time to explore those U.S. cities you've always secretly wanted to learn more about. With hotels, bed and breakfast, vacation rentals, resorts, and so much more on Booking.com, you might just find your perfect stay, even in your baseball rival city during the postseason. Maybe it's time to taste your baseball competition's stadium cuisine, but luckily on you, Booking.com can find the stadium stay that is right for you. With Booking.com's wide variety of choices across the U.S., you can go incognito to all your baseball rivals' cities. Booking.com can help you find the stay that's close to your home team or rival's location. So no matter what team you're rooting for this postseason, Booking.com can make you a fan of any U.S. city. The right stay can make you a fan of anywhere in the U.S., even your baseball rivals. That's Booking.com. Booking.yeah. This show is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. PrizePicks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on PrizePicks, it's just you against the numbers. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so that your lineup stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, your prize picks are still alive. Prize picks invented flex play, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It is guaranteed. PrizePicks. Run your game. Now, yesterday was a weird game for a number of reasons, not only it being the last game in the Colosseum, but the fact that the last game was some random Thursday day game, which felt very fitting, very Oakland A's. But it was also weird watching a Rangers game and actually kind of hoping that the Rangers lost. Not that I'm actively rooting against any of the Rangers players or anything like that, or my fandom is in question or whatever, but it just felt poetic for the A's to win their final game at the Colosseum, to get a moment like that, to get to cheer and celebrate their team one last time, and to forever remember that the last game at Oakland Coliseum, the A's beat the reigning World Series champs. It was just too perfect, too poetic to not want that kind of an ending for a team that has meant so much to the baseball culture, to the landscape. I mean, to heck, even the Rangers. 2 of the Rangers division clinches were in Oakland back in 2010 and in 2016. I mean, they had moments of joy and moments of failure here. They've had just so many freaking games in Oakland against the A's, so many memorable moments that it would feel wrong for Oakland to not win in that final game. I mean, this is a city that loves this team so much and has had 3 different professional sports franchises uprooted in the last, decade or so? First, they lost the Warriors to the other side of the bay, San Francisco. And then they lost the Raiders to Las Vegas. And now they're losing the A's to eventually Las Vegas, but to Sacramento prematurely before they even have a funding plan for the Vegas stadium in play. It's just all feels so haphazard and so wrong and so morally bankrupt watching an idiot billionaire just uproot this team that's been there for 47 seasons just because he wants to make a couple extra dollars. And seeing this happen to a team with as much history and as much, love and support as Oakland has had, that he has driven out of it mercilessly, intentionally, running that team into the ground, stripping it for parts, selling off every good player before they absolutely needed to, and just gutting this team at every corner, cutting every corner while raising prices. And people are sitting here wondering, no one shows up to A's games. Why would you? Why would you show up to a team that keeps raising its ticket prices while cutting costs everywhere and intentionally making a crappy product because their owner says, oh, you guys are suckers. You're going to pay for it anyway. You're going to show up. You're going to make me money no matter how much I do or don't invest in this team. So I'm going to invest absolutely nothing and, in fact, take away from investments so that I can keep making money because I don't give a crap about this baseball team and what it means to this community, to this sport, and to this country in general. This sets a dangerous precedent. This could happen to anywhere. I mean, there are very few franchises right now that I think this couldn't happen to, of some random idiot billionaire wanting to take them and move them somewhere else just because their city council wouldn't cave to whatever demands for taxpayers to build some billionaire their stadium. Thankfully, I don't think it's going to happen to the Rangers because Arlington taxpayers seem always willing to give money to whatever stadium needs stadiuming in the city of Arlington. As long as that's happening, then I think the Rangers might be safe from that. But in terms of other teams in Dallas, I mean, Mark Cuban, who I thought was going to own the Mavericks till he died, just sold. And there's already been rumors about them possibly moving to Las Vegas because their new owner has such deep ties to Las Vegas. And it's just incredibly frustrating to watch a community that, cared so much about this sport just be completely taken over and helpless to do anything about it. I mean, seeing these Oakland fans, seeing how emotional they were getting about this team, it got me all choked up. I mean, Dave Raymond did an incredible job in the final couple of innings, and the broadcast in general, the Ballet crew did an exceptional job of just letting those moments breathe, letting us hear the sell the team chants, because they're there. Every broadcast, they're there. Every single game, there is a sell the team chant, at least 1 to 3 to 17 at an A's game. Because they've had it with John Fisher, and that's their only recourse, is to chant sell the team, or to take stadium chairs, or to do whatever they can. Throw a big old beach volleyball that's shaped like a baseball. That was their recourse. And in terms of the chaos that ended up happening at the end of this game, or even throughout it, there were a lot fewer stoppages for random things on the field or whatever streaker, protester, whatever was going on than I really anticipated, with all the emotions and, powerful feelings that were coming along with the end of the A's tenure in Oakland. It was just a beautiful moment for baseball collectively rallying around Oakland and saying, this is wrong, this is messed up, and even though there's nothing we can do about it, we're still going to scream about it until it makes you, the next person, reconsider what it's going to look like, the social capital it's going to cost to do this, how much you will be absolutely loathed and reviled by an entire city just to make a few extra bucks when you're already one of the richest people on the planet. It was just such a frustrating and sad moment. I'm glad the A's got to have some moments of joy this season. I mean, having all these fun young players with, really bright futures ahead of them in Brent Rooker, and the breakout of Lawrence Butler this year. Mason Miller is absolutely electric to watch. Not to mention J.J. Bleday having a really, really good season. And Shea Langeliers, the Rangers are intimately familiar with how incredible Shea Langeliers is. The most incredible and unexpected thing about this entire series is that Shea Langeliers went a whole 3-game set with the Rangers and didn't homer against them. That was probably the most unbelievable thing that happened in these 3 games. But my heart is out to all of my Oakland friends, to Jason Burke, former host of Locked On A's, who was there on the ground covering everything for SI Oakland A's. Go check out all of his work at @ByJasonB on Twitter. Just a free shout out to my boy, who has done an incredible job of covering this final season, and not just what it means to the fans, but the stadium workers, to the players. I mean, to everybody involved with this team. You could see it with the manager's speeches at the end of this game, with the people throwing out first pitches, with just how much this team has meant to people over the decades. It's incredibly frustrating, and it's incredibly sad. You know what else is sad? The end of any baseball season. This has been a very frustrating season as the reigning champs that is ending a lot sooner than the Rangers hoped or expected, and it's getting to that point in where baseball nostalgia is taking over my brain and is going to make me forget how incredibly frustrating and annoyed I was and angry for most of this season. And it's getting to the point with 3 games left, with 1 series left. I'm sitting here thinking, I'm not really ready for the offseason just yet. I think we've got 1 more Jacob deGrom start. We'll have 1 more Andrew Heaney start. And then the vaunted TBD on Sunday against Kochanowicz, Jack Kochanowicz of the Los Angeles of Anaheim A's out there, who, by the way, hopefully the Rangers can end this on a W3. I'm thinking they very much can, because I don't know if you were paying attention to the Angels versus the White Sox series, which you probably shouldn't have been unless you're an absolute sicko like me. But I watched pretty much every game of that series and watched the Chicago White Sox staving off history. They're sitting at 120 losses. 121 would be the modern baseball record that has not been done since, I think, the 1880-something Cleveland Spiders. That's the only team that's been worse than them. But they have won 3 straight games. The Angels lost 3 straight games. They got swept by the Chicago freaking White Sox in the year of our Lord 2024. So they are not necessarily feeling the best about themselves heading into this final series of the season. And also they're going to be facing off against Jacob freaking deGrom in game 1 of that series. So maybe the Rangers can end this season and make me completely forget every bad moment that's happened in 2024. It's going to be difficult to forget all of them, but at least most of them, and make me nostalgic and, missing baseball, because we got 3 games left. We got 3 more games of Rangers baseball until February. And when I was thinking about that prospect, 2 weeks ago, heck, even a month ago, I was like, yes, I am so done. I am so over this dumb season. It feels fluky, feels frustrating, feels incredibly stupid. Let's go flip the calendar to 2025 and see if Bruce Bochy has just got odd year magic now that he's in the AL as opposed to the even year magic of the NL, and try and get 2 championships in 3 seasons. I don't know. We'll see. But I am very much looking forward to this final series, mostly just looking forward to watching Jacob deGrom throw baseballs real good again in a Texas Rangers uniform for the last time this season, for the last time until February or March. But this is it. The final preview show, I guess, if you will, talking about the regular season, just the final show of this 2024 World Series reigning season, where the title defense has been about as good as Mike Napoli's defense in the outfield. But that's going to do it for this week's shows. Thank you all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.